Welcome to Inside Franklin Athletics. This is an episode I have been looking forward to for the past however long it was that we booked this. This is a special episode with one of my favorite people that I've encountered in my time at Franklin Community High School. I am Brian Powers.
And I'm Chaz Hill.
With us on the line today, we have a legend. 1979 Southridge Raider high school graduate. He graduated there, the all-time leading passer, receiver, rusher, and tackler. 1983 graduate of Hanover College, leading passer, rusher, tackler, and punter. Franklin Community High School teacher and coach from, I'm not sure. I forgot to do research on that one. He got the call from home, the call to come home. He is currently serving as the Southridge High School athletic director for another couple months. Also, the honorary Milford Mudlark. We have with us the man, the myth, the legend, Brett Bardwell.
Wow. Thank you. Awesome to see. What's that?
Was I accurate on any of those?
You were pretty close. I mean, you very, very close on quite a few of those, especially the tackling.
Yeah.
A heck of a defender in my day, yes.
Yeah. So, Mr. Bardwell, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Austin P., one of my favorite people, one of my favorite students I had, and then Chaz Hill. Chaz, of course, your dad, Charlie Hill, awesome receiver. When I played at Hanover, great guy. And, man, it's an honor to be on here. Sure loved my time at Franklin High School and that community, man. Great place.
That is awesome, and we're glad to have you on here. We're both. I think this is the most excited, but either of us have ever been for a podcast that we've had, and so it's.
I don't know if I could. That puts pressure on me right there. I'll do my best.
I like applying pressure to you, Bardwell.
And don't you worry, Bardwell.
Okay.
I talked to Charlie, and he left you some questions.
Oh no, C Hill, number 22, heck of a player out of Beach Grove. Man,
he wears
dude, very intense dude.
He wears 22. Played in the early '80s. It sounds like he would have like one of those cutoff shirts.
Oh, absolutely.
With the pads hanging out the bottom.
Well, I'll tell you what, C Hill would. Yeah, he was pretty cut. He was in shape, man. I mean, he could have worn one of those. And his stomach, he had the build to do it. That's for sure.
So, Bardwell, how are you handling this lock-in? I know that your schedule kind of became a little bit more clear, and you're about to retire from the AD position, but you have. It's kind of made it a little bit more of an easy transition.
Well, yeah, there's always, I guess, a silver lining. I mean, but I was looking forward to a lot of things. In my last few months, we were getting ready to host the basketball regional. We had hosted the sectional, and we were just getting ready to host the regional. We had our basketball regional meeting, and we discussed bringing in extra hand sanitizer and all those kind of things. That was on a Tuesday. And by Thursday, you know how the things really started changing so quickly. By Thursday, it was going to be 75 people allowed in, and then per team. And then by Friday it was canceled, and things just continued to progress from there. And, it's, a bigger, issue than just sports, obviously, and it just is. But at the same time, I feel really bad for the kids and their parents, not getting to play and not getting to participate, especially seniors, not just athletes, but all of them, that their senior year is just kind of possibly abruptly coming to an end, and just kind of strange times. But and it's affecting everybody in different ways. But we're doing okay here. Kind of locked down with my family, and I'm taking it one day at a time.
So as an athletic director, and you guys are hosting the regionals, which you've got a great gym there, and you get something like that, which, as an athletic director, it has to, obviously, the economic help that it provides for you, but also just, how would you feel as a former athlete if something like that was kind of taken away? Not by anyone's fault at all, but did you put yourself in the athlete's position in that?
Yeah, I think that, you try to put yourself in their position in a lot of things when you're an athletic director or a teacher or coach. I think that's your job. Is you always try to do what's best for your student athletes, and you always try to think from their perspective on certain issues. I was just up at the last night for about 4 or 5 hours. Things down. We still had our coolers full of Cokes and things like that I had to take out, and it was just kind of a surreal scene up there. It was still set up to host a regional, and it just never happened. But for the kids, you like you say, you feel bad. I think it's something that it just takes everyone a while to process. And I think it's something that is probably going to affect the kids, for a long, long time in terms of their memories of how they're, for example, for those basketball players, those seniors, and especially how their careers ended, because there were teams that obviously felt they could advance. Heritage Hills down here, one of our local schools, had a tremendous, tremendous team. They were a state championship caliber team, and loaded with some seniors, and now they'll never know. So that's just tough. I don't know how history is going to look back on that, but I'm sure someday there'll be some articles about the state champion that never was, or things like that. But like I said, though, in the bigger picture, you listen to the medical experts and those that are in charge, and try to, do what you're told to do, and health and safety is number one for everyone. So that's how you got to view it right now.
How do they take into account? I'm assuming, I guess that would be just all those decisions to cancel and stuff like that would be kind of above your head. That's just, you're kind of at their mercy.
Mm-hmm. As far as canceling the regional and those types of things. Yeah, that was an IHSAA decision. And of course that became something that, it just filtered down from everything, as we've seen from the NBA and all sports and all activities. It just continued to a domino effect there. And, I credit the IHSAA because, they tried to, initially make adjustments to still have the tournament. And, with limiting the fans, and they hung in there as long as they could, but, they had to do what they had to do. As far as the financial impact, huge financial impact on a lot of people. And in our community, in our school, hosting a boys basketball sectional, regional, it is nice financial boon for our community, with people coming in and going to restaurants and buying gas and things like that. For us, we get the concessions at those pretty large tournaments, which are good financially for us. So that was a bit of a hit with the regional, but nothing compared to what some people are getting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, we're done talking about the athletic director and then the canceling and everything. We've been talking about COVID-19. Everyone's hearing that.
Okay.
So now it's Bardwell. So you are
My
from
favorite subject.
absolutely. So you are at Southridge High School right now. That's where you're from. God's country, Southwest Indiana, down by Jasper, Huntingburg, beautiful area. So you're at Southridge. Tell us about your career at Southridge.
As far as when I was a student, or
Just
is
yeah,
that what you mean when I was in high school?
we're going old school.
Yeah, that is old school. Well, there's not a lot to tell. I would say, my dad was athletic director here for 30 years, and then I've been for about 20. So when I was in school, my dad was the AD, and of course, I grew up loving sports, football, basketball, baseball. I played all three, and I was, okay in them. It was fun. I loved high school. I don't, I was one of those people that really loved high school. It was fun, and I love, I liked living down here, and I'm sure that's one of the reasons I wanted to come back home, be near my family, and also back at Southridge. It's something about, for me, Southridge just being, having a passion for it. It's in my blood. It's just, I don't know. I just love my school. And so getting to come back then later and work here has been a real honor and a blessing. But when I was in high school, like I said, I played all three. I was just, a decent athlete. I was able to, probably the highlight of my high school career was winning a basketball sectional my senior year back in the day when it was single class. Yeah, my senior year in '79, we won, and it was a single class then, of course. And so Jasper was in it and all of that and all the county schools. And it was,
Right.
That was back in those days winning a sectional. It still is, I know, but back then it was really a big deal. We got out of school on Monday because we won the sectional, stuff like that.
The hero of the school.
Yeah. And then, football wise, I didn't really get to start until I was a senior at quarterback, and I hurt my knee. So I played 4 or 5 games. So not much of a football career. Baseball, played third base, not much of a hitter. So, but I had fun. And what was different, I think back then, as opposed to now, one of the big differences was, as you guys I'm sure know, but kids didn't specialize as much on sports. There was not the AAU. There weren't travel teams. You played a sport, the season came to an end, you went to your next sport, and there was less pressure. There was pressure on coaches and there was pressure to win, but it was not as intense. Summer times, we're not traveling all over the country, on travel teams and whatnot. It was basically staying in your hometown and working, and then at night going to open gyms, maybe lifting some weights, although we didn't have much of a weight program back then, but it was a simpler time. And, but it was a good experience, and I had fun. And even as an AD today, that's one thing I always stressed or tried to our kids here at Southridge was, we want to win, work hard and all that sort of thing, but don't, still have fun. Stress that to our coaches too. It should be fun to a certain degree, obviously.
What's one game? Do you remember one game from any sport that's you're just like, that's the game. I wish I had a video of it, or I wish I, would anything like that.
Go back and relive.
That's a good question. Absolutely. My senior year, the sectional championship game in basketball at Memorial Gym, sold out, and we played Northeast Du Bois, which is a small school, but they had a very good team, and we had played each other. That was the third time we played each other that year when we played in the final. And that group of kids they had, with our group of guys at Southridge, we kind of grew up playing against each other all through middle school and high school, and it came down to that championship game. And, I just growing up, winning a sectional championship was kind of, in basketball, was, I guess, my dream. That was something that I dreamed of. I remember when I was a little kid going to those sectionals and, dreaming of playing in it, and to win it was a big, to us then it was huge. But we'd beaten Du Bois twice that year, and it's tough to beat a team 3 times. And it turned out that way. We went back and forth, and then late in the game, it was a low-scoring game. We took a 10-point lead with about 2 minutes to go. It looked like it was over. They called timeout. We started celebrating a little early, and they rallied for 10 straight points to tie it. We got the ball back with about less than a minute and just held the ball. And took it down to 5 seconds and threw it inside. Kid got fouled, and this kid that shot for us said, oh man, he was about 0 for 8 from the free throw line that night, but he hit 2 at the end, and then Du Bois came down, and I'll never forget the kid that I was guarding coming right at me. He just tore down the court, and I kept backtracking, didn't want to foul, and he shot about a 15-footer, man, and it was literally do-do-do-do, and then popped out. And I remember that, and you asked that question. There are times that I've thought I would love to go back and just like relive that or watch that, watch it from a fly on the wall type of thing. But they weren't allowed to video those games back in those days. They weren't allowed to video sectional games back at that time. So, but that would be the one.
So do you remember your thoughts when that ball was in the air? Can you say them on here?
I just remember, backtracking, and the kid came at me, and he turned, I just all I remember, I did not want to foul, like I said, and he had a wide open look because I just kind of put my hand up, and I just remember turning and looking, and I can still see that ball, going back and forth on the rim and popping out. And when it popped out, just a feeling of elation, of I can't believe it. And even to this day, that's to have won that still gives you some satisfaction. And sometimes I think, man, if we'd have lost that would have been tough to live with.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was kind of a highlight for me in high school for sure.
All right, so you moving to college now, where you meet up with Charles Hill, legendary Charles Hill,
senior.
You better believe it. Out of Beech Grove.
So how did you get to Hanover, and kind of talk about your career there?
Well, obviously I was not really recruited by anyone out of high school. I didn't have much of a high school football career. I played JV as a sophomore and a junior. And then finally, when the senior year, I got to play a little bit and hurt my knee. So back in those days, again, we're talking way back in the day, with before the internet and whatnot, I remember just writing letters, actual letters to different colleges, and giving them my stats and my grades and my situation. And I wrote Franklin College. I remember getting a letter from Red Fought. I wrote, most of the small colleges in Indiana. And then I wrote Hanover, and Hanover was really the only one that really, the coach, Pete Campese, actually called me and invited me to visit. So we went to visit. It was the only school I visited. After I came home, my mom and dad and I talked about it, and my mom and dad were like, if you're going to, Coach Campese wants you to come and play football at Hanover, you better get a hold of him and let him know you're going to come there. So I called him and said, I'm coming. And he was all excited, or seemed to be over the phone. And then when I got there, so that's how I went to Hanover. It was it was a good school, but a chance to play football. I just wanted to play a college sport. That was a kind of another dream of mine growing up, and football just kind of gave me that opportunity. I always loved, to be honest with you, I loved basketball more in high school, but football was a chance to play. But anyway, I showed up at Hanover, and I'll never forget the first day I reported. I thought, well, here I am, Coach Capizzi really wants me, and he was excited that I was coming. And then when I walked up to report to the football stadium, he oh yeah, he goes, hey, only guy that we had I think we had 7 or 8 freshman quarterbacks and 2 returning seniors. And the other quarterbacks were from some pretty nice schools, I think like Lawrence North and North Central, Seymour, whatever. And I was pretty low on the totem pole. But I just kind of hung in there and got an opportunity, and turned out to be 4 years of a lot of fun at Hanover too. I love that place. Great friends and good school. I was blessed to get to go there. It just worked out for me.
So luckily, as we said, we have an inside source for some questions to, delve a little bit deeper into your fantastic time at Hanover. So these are questions straight from my dad to kind of probably get some stories here.
Oh no.
So we'll stick with the playing career first. First thing I wanted to talk about was a game where you quarterbacked against Wilmington College. Apparently there was a story there. Against
Wilmington?
Yeah.
Well, is just in general terms, Wilmington usually had our number. Well, I don't think we beat Wilmington until we were seniors. And if I remember correctly, we beat them 14-7, and Charlie Hill caught a TD pass late in the game. I do remember that. A little Z in, Z out from about 10 yards, a little in-out route, and gave us the lead. And then late in the fourth quarter, we got the ball back, and we're trying to drive to run the clock out. And I remember we had a 3rd and long. I can still remember this, 3rd and long, and threw a pass, Charlie, on like a deep out on a flood route. And Charlie went down, caught it sliding, like on his rear end, kind of caught it sliding and gave us a first down. So we were able to run the clock out. I remember that.
That's big time. So Wilmington was kind of a powerhouse team for you guys facing that time?
Yeah, Wilmington College in Ohio. They were very good. There was Findlay College. They were very good too. Anderson College had a good team at those times. Yes. But C. Hill was the star of that game because he came through with some big catches.
I guess most of these questions, my dad is just wanting you to brag about him, because the next question he had was how many touchdowns did you throw to him against Rose-Hulman?
Yes, yeah. I'm glad that these questions are. Some of them, I'm afraid he's going to ask some scary questions, about things. But anyway, Rose-Hulman. I'll never forget senior year. We opened up with Rose-Hulman. Charlie had 3 TD catches. And I remember, that got our season off to a great start, and we had a good year. But I remember Rose was always pretty good. And I remember we did not score in the first quarter. We moved the ball. They kept. I'll make this quick. It was my fault. They would change the coverage. They kept, changing coverages as we'd come to the line of scrimmage. Mm-hmm. And had me confused a little bit. And I was checking off to some things that were not working. And actually, our offensive coordinator was Mike McClure.
Wow.
I think you guys probably know. Coach McClure was the O coordinator that year, his first year. And he was great. I love Coach McClure. But anyway, he got on me, on the sideline, and we went over some things. And they were going from some cover 3 to cover 2 and whatnot. And he told me to check to a fade. And so the next time we went out early in the second quarter, they did it again. They checked to a cover 2, and I just checked to a fade. And Charlie, I still remember it, to my left, released, and I just laid it out there, and he took it about 70 yards. And then we caught, we had another one in the end zone he caught, and I can't remember the third one, but Charlie had a huge game. And we wound up beating them pretty good once we got rolling.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're talking about throwing all these touchdowns. Well, really, you're talking about how great Chaz's dad was. That's kind of really what we wanted to hear. But it kind of takes us back to the beginning of the story where you were talking about how the coach had brought in 7 or 9 quarterbacks, and then there were 2 returners. So how did you get to be the quarterback, and how long were you kind of the starter?
Well, I think I just was fortunate, And first of all, you talk about Charlie Hill. I mean, Charlie was our best receiver, but we had some other good ones. And I think, when you're a quarterback or you're anything, you're as good as the people around you. And so we were able to have success, and I was a little bit there at Hanover because we had good teams. You know what I mean? Just good teams. But anyway, the way that I I think at the college level, it's just getting an opportunity. There are a lot of really good players that aren't at the right place at the right time, and I was just lucky to be. But what happened is came in there as a freshman, like I said, and I think there were 7 or 8, I don't remember, of us freshman QBs. And I just kind of hung in there, and the starter was a really good player our freshman year from Tip City, Ohio. I remember Cliff Hellier. He was a great player. And we all just what wound up happening is the backup quarterback quit, the other senior, before the season started. And then we had some scrimmages, some preseason scrimmages, and I got lucky and hit a couple passes, kind of moved me up on the depth chart. And so there were 3 of us, me and the kid from Seymour named Rob Hinkle, and I wound up at third string to start the season, unbelievably. And then from that point on, some of the other kids just kind of quit, kind of went away. Some of them, transferred at semester or, gave up football pretty quickly. And it was just a lesson to me to just sometimes, the most talented or whatever aren't the most, it's just a matter of hanging in there and not quitting. And so I was third team and Rob Hinkle was second, and we spent that season like that. And I made the travel team. And I remember I never got in a game all year, my freshman year, until the last game of the season. I got in for 2 plays for a couple handoffs. And then we came back my sophomore year, and so it was me and Rob Hinkle came back as sophomores to battle for the starting job. Well, this freshman came in by the name of Mike Leonard.
There he is. I knew he was going to come up somewhere.
I know him. And from Speedway, Mike Leonard, and who turned out, of course, to be, has had an unbelievable career as the coach at Franklin there, and really one of my best friends. I love him, Leonard, and we became great friends there at Hanover. And so what happened then, my sophomore year, is Leonard came in and became the starter as a freshman. And Hinkle and I were kind of behind him, and then things just occurred, and I wound up getting into actually the Rose Holman game, first game of the year as a sophomore, and hit a TD pass and got an opportunity to start, and wound up starting from that time on my sophomore, junior, and senior year. And then Mike and I were kind of like, right there together those 3 years. And Mike played a lot. And then, of course, Mike's senior year, he was the starter and was having an unbelievable season till midway when he hurt his knee. But I always felt like Mike was, to be honest with you, I thought a lot more talented than me. Big, strong guy, could throw the heck out of the ball, and just a great player. But I was just in the right place at the right time, got an opportunity, and surrounded by really good players. You didn't have to do a whole lot as a quarterback, when you have those kind of running backs. Hinkle wound up moving to running back. Rob did from Seymour. He rushed for over 1,000 yards a couple seasons there. So it just all worked out. I was just really blessed. Great experience.
Did you your freshman year, you said you got into the game against Rose Holman, and you had took 2 snaps. Did you think about audibling out into a pass?
Actually, it was not until the last game of the season that I got in for 2 plays. The last 2 plays of the season.
I
I
stand
did
behind
not
my
think
question.
about doing that. I did not really think about doing that. I was just hoping I could take the snap and not fumble it and hand it off to the right guy. But I do have to tell you a true story. Maybe the reason I didn't do that is because my sophomore year in high school, we were pounding this team called Wood Memorial, and they put me in. And for some reason, I did call a pass play. We were up like 50-0 late in the game, and our defense was really happy, all the seniors, because they'd had a shutout. And I decided I would throw because I'd thrown some in JV games and done pretty well and thought I could throw in varsity. I overthrew a guy by a mile right to the safety. He took it to the house for a touchdown. I was walking off the field, and the coach was not happy. The seniors who had a shutout ruined were not happy. So that was a lesson.
Did you just stay on the field at that point? Did you just want to stay on the field at that point? Be like, I don't want to go to this sideline.
You know what? Yes, I did watch him run to the end zone in a prone position. I was knocked down, and I just laid there and watched him go all the way as I laid on my stomach. Yeah,
Lay on the field, feed it.
Down at Wood Memorial, yes.
So Hanover, your what was kind of your final career stats there? Because didn't you? I mean, the passing leader, that's pretty accurate, isn't it?
I was at that time, when I graduated. And when I graduated, I was. But, after I graduated, that's when actually Coach McClure, a year or 2 or 3 after I graduated, that's when Coach McClure started the run and shoot. And Hanover started throwing it 60 or 70 times a game for a while there. And my records were absolutely demolished. So my numbers that I had was nothing compared to what they are there now. But, yeah, we threw the ball quite a lot when I was there, but we also ran the ball. But I think, the best thing was, I don't know, we had good teams and good players. It was just, for me, college football and Division III was just a perfect fit for me, for my skill level and everything. I was a good fit, Division III. But, man, there were some really, really good players at that level. And there obviously is today. I mean, to play Division III, there are very good players at all levels. But those coaches at Hanover at that time, they recruited a lot of great Indianapolis kids, Cincinnati kids, and Louisville. Those were their 3 hubs. And then just to get to play with kids from some of those big high schools, like I know my center was from Carmel. We had kids from St. X in Louisville and Cincinnati Elder, and for a kid from Southridge, which just a little school really, here in Southern Indiana, rural Southern. It was cool. That was the best. That was the thing that I take, is getting to play with those guys and some great, like I said, Charlie Hill, and then some other receivers that I had. Man, it made it easy. Made me look good, but just a great experience, good teams. And the thing I remember about when I got to Hanover was we had a kid from Shelbyville, and he couldn't believe. I think at that time Shelbyville didn't have a really good football program, and he couldn't believe the attitude that Hanover kids, the football players, had when we first showed up. It was just expecting to win, and we won quite a lot. So they just had that mentality then.
So you kind of talk about being surrounded by great players and great people and great friends and all that kind of stuff. So for the uninitiated, could you explain to Brian and to everyone who will listen to this what the Weenie Bowl is?
Well, I'm sure that I think Chaz has probably played in it.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I'm a veteran.
Yes, okay. Yeah, you've played in it. Okay. I haven't played in that thing for a number of years. I kind of got away from it, just busy and whatnot. But it is Charlie Hill has kept that thing alive for a long time, and it's just a bunch of old guys that we would get together, a bunch of old Hanover guys that we played together around Christmas time every year, and we'd play a touch football game. And when we first got out of school, they were pretty competitive and pretty well played. And I think over the years, they've gotten a little less competitive, and it became where It wasn't just us playing, but the kids everybody's kids started playing, and it became from an intense all guy 3-on-3, blah blah blah, to more of a family thing. Family
Don't
gathering.
tell Charlie it's not intense. Don't do that.
What's that?
Don't tell Charlie it's not intense.
And I haven't played in a while. So did they play this year? I didn't even know.
We haven't gotten it together in a couple years, but still trying to.
Well, Charlie has been the guy that's kept it going. I give him all the credit. And if he could get it, if he gets it up again, I want to know, because I'm going to try to be there.
All right, he's going to hold your word for that. There was one time, according to Charlie, you played at Memorial Stadium on the turf at IU.
We did one time. Yeah, when I was a grad assistant football coach at IU, and we played there one time. We've played that thing all over. We've played it in Indianapolis. We have played it at Hanover. We've played it at Franklin College. We have played it. I think we played it at Southridge one year. I'm not sure. I'm thinking the guy came down here one year. Great. But that's what you get when you go, to college, and you get to do things, whatever you're into. You make really good lifetime friends. That's what's cool about it. Yep.
So I think we can touch on the grad assistant stuff, because I think that's an interesting segue after you're done playing to first getting into coaching and stuff like that. But another interesting character that you might have run into at Hanover is pretty famous now. Good old Woody Harrelson, right? According to my dad, he might have popped into a couple of your dorm rooms a few times. He might have lived in the same dorm as Woody.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Woody Harrelson. Absolutely true. I mean, he was in our class. He was a graduating class with Charlie and I. And the thing about Woody was, you could tell a lot of stories, but Woody was kind of, just a regular guy. He was into theater. He was not a bad athlete. I remember him playing some pickup basketball with us. I can remember, you just kind of knew Woody, and he was a little bit goofy, a little bit, different in a way, but not, he was a cool guy, and everybody knew him. And then when we graduated, just a couple years after he graduated, he shows up on Cheers as Woody the bartender, from Hanover, Indiana, and that was like, oh my gosh, that's Woody. And from there, obviously, it just took off. But a couple stories. I remember my cousin was in a play with him at Hanover when we were undergrad. When we went to school there, Woody got kicked out of the play because he wouldn't show up for rehearsals. I remember that. She said that one time she was in a class with him, and he came in late. The professor was lecturing. Woody just walked right in, walked to the blackboard, drew a big circle, said, "This is the world," and then put a dot in the middle. He goes, "This is me," and then walked and sat down. Things like that. And I do think, and I don't know if your dad's confirmed this with you, but I believe, and I'm real sure about this. When Woody was in college, he had some tough times. I think tough family issues and some personal issues. And your dad's roommate, Dwayne Smith, would kind of counsel with Woody a little bit, and Woody would come into your dad's dorm room, because your dad and Dwayne were roommates, of course. And I think Charlie kicked Woody out of the dorm room a number of times because he wanted to go to sleep or something. I think I remember him being pretty rough on Woody, actually. Get that heck out of here, blankety, Woody. I think I remember that. And yeah, true story.
Oh, that's incredible. Oh, that's amazing.
Did Charlie never tell you he kicked Woody out of the dorm room?
No, he did not. He did tell me that he'd pop in every now and then, but I did not hear about the midnight oil counseling sessions with Dwayne.
Yes. Check with that. Check on that. Okay.
So another follow-up, another thing you guys kind of started, the D3 stuff, I think is just awesome because you get so close with a small group of people, and you become real fast friends on a D3 campus. Apparently you guys started like a comedy weekly luncheon club or something like that.
Yes, it was called the Friday Weekly Luncheon. The Friday Weekly Luncheon. And we had a big cafeteria there at school in the campus center. And every Friday we would take up 2 tables, bunch of guys, and we'd have a different speaker every week. And they became pretty comical, absolutely hilarious, actually. And our speakers ranged from guys dressing up real goofy to acting stupid to serious. We had the basketball coach in. We had the baseball coach in. We had, oh man, it was a blast. It was absolutely a blast. And everybody around would watch. But one of the big things was each Friday, they'd ask Charlie to bust a glass. Did he tell you that?
No.
Yes, the thing was, Charlie would take one of those little glasses you'd get. You know, we got little glasses you'd get your drink in and whatnot. And he would come and he would just bust a glass on the floor. He would just throw it down. It would kind of get intense and everybody'd start screaming, And sometimes he wouldn't do it. Sometimes some weeks he wouldn't, but every now and then he would. But we had some great speakers, some hilarious speakers, some flops. But it was just basically a way for us to entertain ourselves because we were pretty immature and pretty, I don't know what the word would be, but yes, the Friday Weekly Luncheon, there were some funny ones.
Especially because Hanover's, it's not the metropolitan capital of the world. Not a lot going on down
No, not much. I mean, there in Hanover, Indiana, it's kind of unusual to have a college in a tiny, tiny town, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And so we had to do things to make our own fun. And so we did that. I don't know how we started that luncheon thing. And it just, like one of those things that just grew and grew. And the pressure kind of got to us too, because each week we had to come up with a good speaker. And eventually I think we finally may have stopped. We ran out of speakers. It got too much pressure to keep it going, but it was fun. Great times.
I see our podcast going in that direction, Chaz. We've
Probably.
just too much pressure, especially after this one. There's no way we can get speakers that live up to Bardwell.
No, of course not.
Oh.
So what was it like going from a playing career to the grad assistant, going into coaching and stuff like that? I mean, I don't know how much coaching you did, determine on what position you were with, or if you're working at quarterbacks or something, especially at IU, because that's just such a big difference compared to Hanover.
Well, for me, I'll just start this and preface it that I never loved coaching, and even though I coached for a long time, I did some GA stuff, and then of course at Franklin, I enjoyed coaching, but I never loved coaching. I loved playing. Mm-hmm. Playing was more fun. Coaching was good, but I don't know that I was really that great of a coach, to be honest with you. But I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. But for me, when I left Hanover, I went to DePaul, which was another D3, and I was a GA there for 2 years and got my master's. And at DePaul, as a GA, you actually coach. So I coached the running backs, and then I coached the receivers my second year. And so you really coached. You were thrown right into the fire. Mm-hmm. It was a challenge, especially being a young guy, not much older. And
I know how that is. Trust me.
From there, pardon me?
I know how that is.
Yeah, it is. That is a challenge. I mean, being a young guy and trying to coach and teach like yourself there, it's an advantage because you have a rapport with kids. But at the same time, it's a challenge because to separate yourself. I've been there. I get that totally. That's a tough line to walk. But after 2 years at DePaul, I actually left and went to Earlham College and took the job there as offensive coordinator. And I went to Earlham in the spring, and then I got a chance through Gil Spear.
Oh wow!
Yeah, Gil. I played with Gil at Hanover. Coach Mallory at IU needed a GA, and I went and interviewed for the GA spot at IU. And then I was in a real tough decision at that time. Do I stay at Earlham as an offensive coordinator, full-time coach, or do I go to IU back as a GA, but at the Division I level? And nothing, the decision I made was to go to IU And it didn't make sense at the time to anybody. Why would you leave a full-time paid position to go to IU? But for me, there were a couple things. Number one, like you said, I always wanted to see what it was like at Division I. You know, I wanted to experience that. And I got to say, that was two of the most, I had a blast at IU. I had a blast. You know, we played at Ohio State. We played at Michigan. You know, getting to experience those things as a GA, it was a great experience. And I remember trying to make my decision. I went to Coach Mallory because they had me come in for an interview when I was at Earlham, and I had an interview, and then I had to think about it, and I went back, talked to Coach Mallory, and I said, Coach, I'm just not sure what the right decision is. I'll never forget this with Coach Mallory. I learned a lot of things from him. Great man. But I said, I don't know what the right decision is, Coach. He said, I'll tell you what. He goes, when you make a decision and you make it the right decision, you don't look back. And I was like, wow. Coach Mal was an intense Woody Hayes disciple. But his thing, like I said, was he said, well, you make the decision and you make it the right decision. You know, rather than being at the mercy of it, you're in control of it. And so when he said that was really good. And I went to IU and it turned out great. And I had a great time there. And what I found at Division I real quick was I found that it was, to be honest, not that different from Division III. Obviously, football's football. Kids are kids. Obviously, the kids were bigger, faster, stronger, but sometimes not as skilled. And what I mean is we had some receivers at Hanover and DePaul that could run routes and catch the ball much better than some of the kids at IU, but they weren't as big or as fast or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And the skill level as catching and throwing and doing things like that, some of the Division III kids are better than Division I kids. It's just a speed size game. But I had a great time there and made great friends and get to know those coaches. And one of the blessings of that for me was my brother was in high school about that time, and he wound up because I knew the situation at IU. You know, he wound up then walking on at IU and playing 4 years there because I encouraged him to. Because I knew he could do it. I think a lot of times at that time he never would have thought he could have done it, but I saw the kids that did, and the walk-ons at IU. I make an analogy. Were just like the kids at Hanover that they when my brother walked on, I think there were 15. When he was a senior, there were 2 of them. So it's in life, not just in football or sports. In life, it's hanging in there. It's not quitting, and eventually something works out for you. But man, I loved it. I loved IU. I never regretted, going to IU because it was so much fun. But when I was done at IU after 2 years, one thing I realized is I did not want to be a college football coach. I thought I did, there at DePaul and IU and Earlham. And I realized football was not my life. And for those coaches, especially at D1, it was 24/7, every day of the year. And I saw how they had to pull their families all over the country, from job to job and kind of cutthroat. And I decided I wanted to go the high school route. And my first interview was at Center Grove. And almost got the job at Center Grove and didn't get it. And, of course, at that time, I didn't know anything about Center Grove or Franklin or anything. Didn't get the job at Center Grove, came home for the summer to work, was ready to take a job at North Posey High School down here, and then got a call from Walt Vanderbush.
Yeah.
At the last second, they had an opening at Franklin High School for a psych soc teacher, and he was going through these old resumes, and he found mine. And I went up and met with Doc V, and Roger Dodson, and came back. And then I had another tough decision in my life because I had the job at North Posey I'd already taken. And then, I'm like, and I would have been teaching PE and coaching football, but Franklin was psych soc coaching some football. I went back and forth and I took the Franklin job and never regretted that because I loved, as I've told you from the beginning, man, Franklin Community High School. Franklin, Indiana, 12 of the greatest years of my life. Just, gosh, man, I have great memories of that. Great kids and people. that'll always have a special place in my heart. The Grizzly Cubs, man, it was an honor and a blessing to be there. I'll tell you that much.
So were you the quarterbacks coach when you were at Franklin?
Yes, I coached QBs and receivers.
Now, how was it, especially starting off coaching like the the receivers and the running backs, when you were a quarterback? Did you find that difficult, or was it just you were able to show them like from the standpoint of what a quarterback would be looking for?
Yeah, it was kind of an easy, natural progression to coach receivers. I always kind of found it easier to coach receivers than quarterbacks for whatever reason. I don't know why. Even though I had played quarterback, I really liked coaching receivers. I think maybe I learned a lot at DePaul from Coach Morosis when I coached receivers. But receivers, I don't know. I guess understanding coverages and understanding, how routes complement each other and adjusting and things like that. And I learned a lot, about little things about receivers at DePaul. And then coaching DBs, actually, when I was at IU as a GA, you don't coach a position, but I worked with the defensive backs 2 years, and worked with the tight ends one spring. But so learning the DB side of it, how coverages work, and then how receivers work, I kind of understanding that whole thing. And then being a quarterback, it just kind of all went together. But I always felt like it was easier to coach receivers for some reason. I'm not sure. Just easier to teach things. Quarterbacks, I've always found like with quarterbacks, a quarterback, so much of it, I feel, has to be just a natural ability. There's just an innate ability to throw, an instinct to when to scramble. A lot of things you just can't coach with quarterbacks. The best quarterbacks, the really great quarterbacks, they just kind of create things on their own. And I would say when I was at Franklin, the best, I coached some good ones. I hate to say the best, but probably the best I coached was Benji Betts. I don't know if you guys remember him, maybe.
Yeah, he's the principal at Whiteland now.
Pardon me?
He's the principal at Whiteland now.
Is he? He's the principal at Whiteland? Oh, my
I know.
God.
I see him a pretty decent amount.
Well, tell him I said, hey, he was a heck of a quarterback.
Yeah, he was good. That they had him and his brother were both good quarterbacks. So just in your time, in your time at Franklin, what are some of the things athletic wise that stand out, and some of the memories from Franklin that stand out?
I just remember at Franklin with our football program when I was there, we always had pretty good teams. We struggled sometimes to have just everything that we needed. We always had good skill kids, it seemed like, at Franklin. Depth with the line play and stuff like that sometimes caused a struggle. And, of course, we played really good competition. Greenwood was really good back in those days. Avon had a great run. But we had some really good teams. Matt Pinnock, was a heck of a good quarterback, and he had a nice team his senior year. So we generally, when I was there, we were always around 500, maybe a little bit above, but played some pretty tough competition. And I remember, though, when I was at Franklin, I helped with the basketball program some too, with a freshman coach with Jim Higdon. And I remember, Franklin, when I was there, the basketball teams had a great run. Dave Clark and had some really good basketball players, and Coach Heminger with baseball had some really good baseball teams too. But Franklin was always competitive and always, did things first class. Always really, really good kids and good support from the community. It was just a good place for when I was a young guy to learn a lot of things from a lot of people. I learned from a lot of people there.
Did you teach Psych and Soc the whole time?
I did. Psych and Soc. that's all I taught, psych soc for 12 years. And I think toward the end of my career there, we went to the not modular, the block scheduling, where you'd have 4 periods a day.
Yeah.
And, and stuff like that. But, that's what I taught. And man, just like I said, great memories of great kids. When I left, man, it was not easy to leave. It was kind of sad, even though I was coming back home. I wouldn't have left for anywhere else. But even when I came back home, I still thought about Franklin all the time. And to be honest with you, I would have dreams. I would actually have dreams when I first came back that I was back at Franklin, because it was, it was a great place. And just amazing, place to be honest with you. The Lord I was blessed. I just feel like, in my life, I've been led and God has led me and to different places that you don't see until as you look back on it, how things worked out and how fortunate I've been, to be honest with you, to know so many people from different places.
So did you leave was it 99 when you went back to Southridge?
Yes. 99, 2000 was my first year at Southridge.
That's what I thought. So how did that go? Did you know that was coming up down the road, or was it something that just popped open? Was it your dad, correct?
Yeah. Dad retired, and it actually he did it pretty abruptly. And I applied for the job. Actually, what's kind of interesting is I had applied for the head football coaching job at Southridge probably 3 or 4 years earlier and didn't get it.
You couldn't get that job? Didn't you know the athletic director?
Yeah. That's pretty bad, isn't it? I told you I was a terrible coach.
Well,
not even my dad.
What do you think?
Not even my dad would hire me.
Yeah, what do you think about this Bardwell guy? Nah, he's a terrible coach.
He's awful.
Yeah. So anyway, I didn't get the job, so I tucked my tail and went back to Franklin, and for a few more years. But then Dad retired as AD, and I applied for the job, and Dad kind of took himself out of the whole process. Of course, the principal did the hiring and whatnot, and I got the job here. And to be honest with you, I didn't know really much about being an AD. I did not. And I never had dreamed of being an AD. That was never my goal. The reason I took the job here is because I wanted to come back home. I wanted to come back to Southern Indiana. I wanted to be back with my family down in this area. But I do remember at the time thinking, dang it, Dad, why didn't you stay as AD about 3 more years? Because I'm not ready to leave Franklin. It was my 12th year, and I was thinking, I'd like to have about 3 more years here, and then I'll be ready to go maybe. Because I was having a great time, everything was going so well there. And, but I took it and that was an easy decision as I look back. Isn't it weird? I talk about how I had some tough decisions. That was not a hard decision. And, I just knew that I wanted to do that. And, I remember the first day on the job at Southridge as an AD, going into the office and not knowing what to do, looking around, walking around the halls. I didn't know what to do. Honestly, the first day, I did not know, but I guess I figured it out eventually. But it was all good because coming back home was just a perfect fit. It was just I'd been to a lot of different places, been around, and it was ready to come full circle back here and bring what I'd learned back to the kids here at Southridge and give them opportunities that I'd had.
It's funny because that was, as that was kind of the role or the same thing that happened to me this past year where I had been at a place for 13 years. And, when I first started, I was still in my mid-20s. And it was a place where I kind of grew up by the time that I left. I was married and had a kid, and I grew up there. And it was one of those situations where I knew when Franklin opened up and it was just the opportunity to come back home, it was just one of those situations where it was a hard decision. Like emotionally, it was hard, but the actual decision itself was not difficult. And it was just something where you grow so tight with a community and with an area that it's always a place that'll be in your heart.
Very well said, man. Exactly the way I feel about Franklin. It became home, and that was the same thing for me. Same thing for me. I mean, some people move away and they don't want to come back, which is awesome and fine. Everybody's different, but for me, coming back home just fit. And I just felt centered and felt great to be back here. But of course, for me, it was a little bit different because at Franklin, I was still single when I left. I never really established a family there. And that was, I think, something that was missing for me there, and kept it from being, the same experience you had, because I didn't have a family. And if I would have gotten married there and had a family there, it might have, never left, but that was the one thing that was different, and kind of, I hadn't had that experience yet.
Yeah. So you've been at Southridge for, you said, almost 20 years. And this is your last year as athletic director. How did that decision come about?
Well, I've actually, this is my 21st year. The decision came about, very difficult decision, to be honest with you.
You're still going to teach though, correct?
I think that I plan to stay and teach next year. I mean, I can retire fully, but right now that's my plan. Because see, even though I've been the AD here, I've also taught psych and soc all these years here, 1 or 2 classes a semester. So I've never really left that teaching. But for me, the decision to step away from AD is very bittersweet. It's not easy because it's been a lot of fun. I mean, the 21 years has flown, and it's just, like I told you earlier, coaching was not really in my blood, but being an AD was kind of the perfect job for me because I love sports. I love, being around the kids and the coaches, and the administrative part is just, for me, was a perfect fit. I love running tournaments, running ball games, and being a part of it that way, and I think but for me, the decision was made, because being an AD is just here at the situation here at Southridge for me for 21 years was, one person. I've not really ever had a secretary until this year, and kind of a one-man show, which is very time consuming. And your evenings are so full, and we've got about I think probably exactly as many sports as, say, Franklin would have. And it just became, I guess, a little bit burned out, in terms of the time you spend away from your family. And I have a daughter that's a 7th grader, a daughter that's a 5th grader. And, I started missing a lot of their stuff, cheerleading stuff or basketball or activities, or trying to run to their stuff at the last second from events I was covering. And so so I just had to make that decision to, that I just realized that my girls are only going to be here 7 or 8 more years or whatever it is, and then they're going to be gone. And so I want to soak this time up and be a better dad and be there and experience their stuff. And as far as AD is concerned, some of it became kind of a drudgery, to be honest with you. Not as much fun as it was when I started. Stuff that my favorite parts that I'm going to really miss are the Friday night football games, the basketball games, the sectionals, the regional. But other than that, a lot of it I'm not going to miss that much, And
You're gonna like getting home at 3:45 or 4 every day.
yeah, I think so. I'm going to give that a shot. It's a little scary because I'm not used to that. You know what I mean? The future is a little bit uncertain. I'm not sure. I think it's going to be a tough adjustment, but I'm hoping that in a year or so, I'm going to say, man, that was a great decision. But family's the most important thing, as we all know.
It's good. They're going to have more time for weenie bowls, and that's the important thing.
Exactly. The job got in the way of the weenie bowl, man, and that's not good. That can't be.
There was a great article on you earlier in the year in I don't remember what was it, hunting, was it Jasper paper?
Yeah, the Du Bois County Herald. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was a great article. And they had a picture, and it was of you at a football game, and you said that during the football games you'd get to just go up to the top of the press box and just kind of watch the game. Is that something you're going to miss? Was that a special time just for you?
Oh yeah, I will miss that because as an AD, you know, that was one of the things that I enjoyed the most, was putting the big events together, like a Friday night football game or whatever. And then all of your work as an AD is beforehand, putting everybody in place. You know, your ticket takers and your concession people and so forth and so on, and then just watching it unfold. You know, and so when the event gets there, you just oversee it. And yeah, it was a satisfying feeling to observe it, and that if things went well, you know what I mean? It was kind of a satisfying feeling that you put it together. And but I learned early from a older AD that when you do events like that, he said, you know, get good people, give them a job, and get out of their way. And that's what I did. So, you know, your work's leading up to it. But yeah, it was always, when it was over, it was kind of a relief, but it was kind of at the same time you felt good. And yeah, I'm going to miss kind of that being in charge feeling for a while, I think. But, you know, I think that that was one of the positives of it. But I'm going to miss, I think from AD, the biggest thing I'll miss, though, is just relationships with people. With one of the really great relationships is with referees, believe it or not. You get to know the referees that come in and work for you. Other coaches from other schools, kids from other schools, media people. You just get to know so many people, working with them and being in the middle of it. That's what I'm going to miss. It's the relationships with people and with my own coaches as well. But at the same time, I'm hoping that by staying on and teaching and following my kids, that I'll still be a part of things, you know, still be a Raider and still be a part of things, but maybe a little less stressed.
Yeah. That's you know, I think the relationship that you have with your kids will be something that can take the place of that. So I think that's something that I'm sure you'll find. Now, your kids, you said, what grades were they in?
Well, Ellie is a 7th grader,
mm-hmm.
and she is my little. I don't know how I describe Ellie. She's just a bubbly, sweet little girl, and she makes, you know, very good grades, and she loves cheerleading and dance, and she loves art, and she loves to perform, you know, in plays and things like that. And she's just a very sweethearted girl, and that's what I'm most proud about Ellie, is she's just a good girl, and she's kind of a daddy's girl. My other one is Lainey. Lainey is 5th grader, and she's a little sassafras. You know what I mean? She's a good girl too, makes a good student. She likes to play basketball, softball, track, but she's different, you know. And then that's one thing, teaching psych and soc. I always thought in sociology, if you remember back when we learned this, that your personality, before I was married, I always thought your personality was learned, you know, and who you were was learned, which it is to a degree. I've learned having kids that they're born with a personality. Yeah. You know, they're born, and they are individuals. And then, of course, my wife, Sarah, you know, when I first moved back, I met her my first year I moved back here. She was a librarian in the elementary school, and then she became principal of one of the elementaries here. and now she's in charge of all the libraries in the corporation. But I'm very fortunate to have such a good wife, and a good mom, and family's number one, and I've just been blessed. And you're right, that I will get to spend more time with them and enjoy them, and that's a lot more important than that other stuff. Even though it might be difficult at first, that's so much more important.
Yeah. Now, the transition to being a cheer and dance dad, how's that going for you?
Well, hey, you know what? Watch what you say there, Chaz. You never know. You never know what you're going to be, okay?
Yeah.
You never know where you're going to be. But I'm going to tell you something, my man. Whatever your kids do, that's what you're into.
Yep.
It is. I have been, my daughters both went through gymnastics. I've been to many gymnastics events from Martinsville to Indianapolis to whatever. And so that's one thing I think I've learned a little involved in supporting. It doesn't matter what parents handle their kids. You know what I mean? And being a parent is a hard, challenging thing. But I learned, but probably from my dad more than anybody, that let your kids do what they want to do. Support them. Don't be, when they come home, you don't critique them and try to coach them. That's for the coach to do, and the instructor to do. Just try to let your kids be what they are and support them in it. And you just want your kids to be happy. That's what you want.
All right. So we've got a couple more.
Chaz, you may be a cheer dad someday, man.
Could you say that again? You're kind of cutting out a little bit.
I just said, telling Chaz there, you just never know what you're going to be.
Yeah.
You may be a cheer dad someday, or whatever you might be.
Dang
whatever
it,
your kids
if I'm
do.
a cheer dad, I'm going to be the best cheer dad there's ever been.
That's a good attitude to have, buddy. You'll have the T-shirt that says "Cheer Dad" on the front and everything.
Oh, absolutely! I'm bringing pom poms to the stands. It's full bore.
All right. So Bardwell, we have taken up too much of your time, but we're going to take up a little bit more. So we've got a couple more questions. So we do something on here. I do called leave a question. And so we have someone who's going to leave a question, and they left a question for you. And then you have to leave a question for our next guest, but I'm going to give you two of them because you know them both, and it'll be fun. Yesterday's guest, this is going to be kind of a. I don't know if hardly anyone else is going to understand this question. But you and my dad when they watch this. So because the person we had yesterday, Shelby Beal, she's our softball coach, and she does not know you. And sometimes we can make them leave questions, but I decided I'd have my dad leave you a question. So my dad said, when agreeing to this, did you think a podcast was throwing a line to a group of fish?
Did I think that? Okay, give me that one more time.
Did you think that a podcast was throwing a line to a group of fish?
Oh, yes, absolutely. A rising group of trout in a beautiful stream. Yes, absolutely. That's like a dream with a dry fly too.
And
my dad knows.
Rising. My dad said
dry
high.
Fly.
He told me to tell you either high or tight lines.
Tight lines will work. Tell him I said good fishing.
So that is so you have to leave now two questions or questions for two different people. One is Steve Ahouse, our principal. He is on tomorrow, and I believe you know him very briefly. And then the other one is Friday. Is Jake Sappenfield is going to be on.
Oh, yeah. Jake, yeah. Okay.
Do you have questions for them?
Okay. For Mr. Ahouse, I would say my question to him would be, what is the best thing about being the principal at Franklin Community High School.
Okay. All right. And what about Sappenfield?
Does he think, does Sappenfield, does Jake, oh man, I remember Jake. What a kid. Gosh dang, what a run to the semi-state they had. Does he think he could beat me in horse? Because he certainly could in high school. He could not in high school. So does he think he could beat me today? And if he does, come on down to Southridge. We'll go to Memorial Gym. I'll give him a rematch.
Horse, because he couldn't in high school. All right. We will leave those for them, and we look forward to their answers.
Okay, man.
Chaz, what you got?
All right. So I like to finish off with one question, but I'll also finish off with another question from my dad.
Okay.
When did you have your last perm?
Oh, okay. Hey, Chaz.
Yeah.
You just crossed the line on that one, man.
I was going to say,
it's not my fault.
You just crossed. We were having a good time. Fun. And then, you got personal. And you just crossed the line. And I'm not happy about that. You tell your dad I'm not happy about that. You tell your dad I will see. I think the last term I had was maybe junior year at Hanover in the fall, maybe, and it was awesome. It was glorious, and I think I have some pictures. We took preseason football, and it looked kind of like a mushroom on my head. So I will send him a picture. So thank you for that great memory.
You need to tweet that out.
Yes, man. I'll see what I can do. Oh gosh. I knew something like that was coming.
That was probably the question, you thought was coming earlier.
Well, he could have brought me a lot of embarrassing questions, so that wasn't really too bad.
Well, that's what college is for, especially D3, where you have nothing better to do but get perms.
That's right. Right. That's exactly right. Some things are better left right there.
All right. So one thing I really like Bardwell is movies, and I think you can tell a lot about a person by what their favorite movies are. So if you had to pick like three to five like movies or even like TV shows that you like really like or over the years or something that you have a good connection with or something like that, what would you think you'd pick?
Well, from what I've seen about you, you love Star Wars, right?
That is true. Yes. I've
seen that. I've noticed that on Twitter. For me, some TV shows, I love Seinfeld. Okay. I still watch that. I mean, that's a great show. The Office, heck of a good show. Movies, of course, A River Runs Through It.
I knew you were going to say that.
That's what got me going on fly fishing some 25 or 30 years ago, whatever it was. I love the movie Hoosiers. Field of Dreams is a great movie. This one doesn't really go in that with that what I had given you before earlier, but I've always liked the movie Fargo.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was a cool movie. I loved Austin Powers, all the Austin Powers movies, Vacation, the original, and Christmas Vacation, great movies. I got to tell you a movie you need to watch sometime that you've probably never seen. It's called The Best of Times.
Ooh, never heard of it.
Okay, you got to watch it because it's Robin Williams is in it, and it's a hilarious movie. It's a great movie. It's the best of time. It's called The Best of Times, and it's about this guy that goes back to replay a high school football game where he dropped the pass in the big game, and they go back and replay the game when they're like 30 years old.
Oh, wow.
Robin Williams. It's very funny. It's very funny. So watch that sometime. But that's a retro one.
I'll take
Those
that down.
My movies. Okay.
That was about going to be you if that guy hit that shot in the sectionals.
No kidding, man. Absolutely. I would have. Isn't it weird how you do remember the losses? Losses sting a lot more than the victories feel good. I will tell you that much. You do remember those losses sometimes.
Well,
they can haunt you.
Bardwell, we thank you so much for your time. It has been so great catching up with you. You are one of the biggest influences I've had in my life, and I just remember as a freshman sitting in our class, and there was a senior. I was in homeroom, and I really didn't know you that well, but there was a senior football player who had some disabilities with his arms and his legs, and he's still the center, and you wouldn't think he would have been. He was missing part of his arm, and I remember you got up and you talked about how great of a kid he was, and I just remember to this day, 25 years later, how emotional you were, and I just thought, this is a guy who is good to have in your corner, and so I just thank you so much on behalf of me and so many people at Franklin High School whose lives you've touched positively, that you came and kind of let us catch up with you and your life and everything like that.
Man, Brian, I appreciate that. I really, really do. Those words mean a lot to me. And what's neat about you and I and our relationship is, like you said, starting when you were a freshman, who would think that all these years later, as adults, we'd be good friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In the adult world, and I'm blessed. I think being, making that decision to go into the high school level, to be a teacher and whatnot, and a coach, I've always felt like is an opportunity to be a role model, and it's a two-way street. Frank, I was thankful to be at Franklin. Was great for me. I hope that I did some good things for Franklin, but Franklin was just a great 12 years in my life. I really grew as a person there. And I've always, just been very thankful to have been a part of that community, because it just was made up of great people. Any school, it's not all the different, it's the people to me. I'm a right brain thinker, I guess, but it's the kind of people you get to meet. And there's so many good people there, and from the teachers to the coaches to the kids. I think I learned so much from the kids and the relationship with them. But it was an honor to be there, an honor to be at Franklin, and I'll always have some of that Grizzly Cub in me. And I appreciate your words, and tell everybody back there that I said hello. And I oftentimes wonder where all those kids have gone, and just great times.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Chaz, anything to add?
Yeah. I just want to say, it's been, I don't even know the last time you might have seen me, Bardwell. I probably was, if you had, it was probably when I was like 3 or something like that.
He still hasn't.
I know. I can't see him.
I don't think so. I think I remember when you were in high school, we played Weenie Bowl indoors up in Indy.
There?
Yeah, I was there. See, you don't even remember me, man. Now that hurts. But anyway, I remember you. You were there because I remember you had just made All-State, I think.
Oh, that's, yeah.
High school, right?
All-State, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, this was before you, maybe your junior or senior year, it just ended of football. And you were, I think I remember, and I was like, wow, this kid's Charlie Hill's got a good looking athlete here, and All-State and everything. And I don't know if you had planned to go to Franklin yet or not. Maybe you had, but I do remember you.
Wow. So I guess maybe even my dad forgot that you had played that recently, because when he asked me, like, make sure you ask him when the last time he played was.
Well, I quit playing when I kind of gave it up when it quit getting competitive, and all the kids were running around driving everybody crazy. And see, at the time I wasn't married yet and didn't have kids and didn't know what a joy that was yet. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So now I get it. Now I get it, that those were the best.
Great thing now is that we're all like 20s and 30s at this point. So now it's competitive again. It's fantastic.
Well, I'm afraid that I don't think I could be competitive. I think you guys have all raced way by us. I think, obviously we've gone downhill as you guys have gone uphill.
But
except for Charlie. I know Charlie is still in great shape.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm sure Leonard will fling it.
He's all-time quarterback now.
And and Coach Leonard loves to fly fish now too. So he and I haven't fly fished together yet, Mike and I, but we're going to.
hmm But I just wanted to say, growing up, hearing my dad tell all these kind of stories of you guys while you were at Hanover was like one of the biggest inspirations to me to want to go to a small school and like make those memories myself. So and I could tell how good of a human being like you were, and all the you guys that were friends with, just the way my dad talked about you guys. So thank you for being, a great friend of my dad and that kind of stuff. Awesome.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Chaz. I hate to keep going on, but Charlie and I and Mike, sometimes when you get to college, you kind of find a group like yourself. We all just fit together pretty well. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and that's I think a key for any kids in high school or college is the group of friends you can find yourself with. So you can be who you are. And Charlie and those guys were just my kind of guys, and we just came together naturally. And that's something you always hope for your kids, that they find a good group of friends, because that's crucial. But I know that you are what you are because of your dad and your mom and the way they've raised you. And like I always said in my social classes, we're all products of our environment, and many people influence us and shape us, starting with our families. And it's amazing how we take these things through our whole lives. So pretty cool. I've really enjoyed this, guys. I've really, really enjoyed getting to talk to you. It's been fun.
It has been a good time. So thanks again for all your time. Tomorrow, join us for Steve Ahouse, principal at FCHS. And then on Friday, we will have Jake Sappenfield, 1998 grad of Franklin High School, talking about his career and their 1997 run to the Elite Eight at Hinkle Fieldhouse. For Chaz Hill, I am Brian Powers. Thank you again to Brett Bardwell, and enjoy watching the Milford Mudlarks in retirement, Bards.
Coach Gilthorpe, my man. He was my mentor.
All right, we'll see you all later. Thank you very much.